Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give everyone a couple more seconds to continue joining in before we go ahead and get started with today's training. Okay, well, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's training for families for the Education Scholarship Trust Fund program in South Carolina. My name is Manuela Peralta. I am a senior implementation specialist here at ClassWallet, and I will be hosting today's training. And joining me is a representative of the South Carolina Department of Education here to answer any programmatic questions. A brief agenda as to what we'll go over today. We'll go over what the ESTF program is, what the approved expenses are for this program, how you'll be able to access your ClassWallet account, viewing and accepting the affidavit, how you'll be able to find education service providers and issue payments to them, how you'll be able to use your funds in ClassWallet, and a couple other pieces of important information. Towards the end of the presentation, we will also have a time allotted for questions and answers. So as I go through the training, feel free to drop any questions that you may have in the Q&A box, either at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on your settings. Okay. We'll answer those questions as we go through the training, and then any unanswered or frequently asked questions that we would like to address will be addressed towards the end. This training is also being recorded and will be posted on the program website within a couple of days. And we'll send out an email communication once the training has been posted so that you can easily access it. So, program overview. The Education Scholarship Trust Fund Program, also known as the ESTF program, is administered by the South Carolina Department of Education, and it allows qualifying South Carolina families to apply for a scholarship of $7,500 per student per year. And these funds can be used to create a customized and flexible education for your child. If you received a direct invitation to today's webinar, it's because your student's ClassWallet account should have been funded with the first quarterly deposit, which did start early last week. Okay. And then ClassWallet is a digital wallet platform that you will be using to use your ESTF funds, which we'll go over in detail in today's training. Okay. I am also posting on the chat here this training deck along with some helpful links to help you navigate through the program and different program resources. Okay. So moving on to approved expenses. So approved expenses for the ESTF program for this school year include textbooks and workbooks for grades kindergarten through 12th grade, and this is in the subjects of math, English, science, social studies, and foreign language. Okay. Curriculum in those same subjects is also considered an approved expense, as well as instructional materials. So items such as glue, binders, papers, pencils, those are all things that you can purchase through the ClassWallet Marketplace that with your ESTF funds. And we'll go over the marketplace in just a couple of minutes. Okay. You may also pay for tutoring sessions for your student using ESTF funds, and this can be in the subjects of math, English, science, social studies, or foreign language. And then any supply fees charged by the tutor can also be paid using your ESTF funds. Computer hardware is also allowed to be purchased. This includes items such as laptops, desktops, monitors, and tablet computers. It is very important to note that each item listed here is limited to the purchase of one of each item every 2 years. So you can purchase a laptop, a desktop, a monitor, and a tablet computer once every 2 years. Then any computers classified as gaming computers are not allowed to be purchased. However, any product warranties included as part of the purchase are eligible to be approved. Okay. So moving on to some tech devices. So printers and ink that is allowed to be purchased. However, 3D printers are not. Items such as headphones, keyboards, a mouse or a mouse pad, an Apple Pen or charging cords and cables, and any protective cases for the technology, such as an iPad case or a laptop case, can be purchased. And then any speakers, hard drives, smart boards, or TVs are not approved. You may also pay for your student's national norm reference exam, such as an AP exam or any similar assessment, using your ESTF funds. And then any educational therapies that your child or student might be in need of or is currently undergoing, you can also use your ESTF funds to pay for that. And educational therapies include ABA, speech, physical, occupational, vision, or dyslexia or dysgraphia therapy. And then any fees for the initial evaluation and or any required therapy equipment used during the therapy service or session could be paid using ESTF funds. Then any services provided by your student's non-resident school district, including out-of-district fees, individual classes, after-school tutoring services, transportation, can be paid using ESTF funds. It is important to know that transportation is limited to $3,000 per school year. Okay, so you can only pay up to $3,000 for any transportation. Okay. So moving on to ClassWallet access and how you'll access your digital wallet and your ESTF funds. So again, if you received a direct invitation to today's webinar, it's because your student's account has been funded $1,875, which is the first quarterly deposit. Okay. In this welcome, you should have received a welcome email from ClassWallet, and this welcome email includes the link to this presentation that we are sharing today. It includes information as to how you'll be able to access your ClassWallet account and the different ways you have to use your ESTF funds in ClassWallet. So this welcome email is a great starting point for you to reference or go back to if you're ever needing quick information. Okay. So how you'll actually access your ClassWallet account. And some of you may have already gone through this process so that you can start using your funds. But for those of you that have not accessed your ClassWallet account before, you will need to go through the following steps. So first step is to go to app.classwallet.com and click on the first time login button. Then you'll be routed over to a screen to enter your email address. Your email address should be entered in all lowercase letters, and the email address that you enter should be the same email address that you use in your fax application or the same email address that you've received the welcome email to. Once you've entered that, you'll click I'm not a robot and select verify email address. That will then trigger an email to be sent to you from info@classwallet.com. This email will look very similar here to the snippet to the left. And you'll click on that email and click where it says click to login. Then you'll be prompted a screen to set your password. So you'll enter a password, re-enter the password, read over the ClassWallet acceptable use policy, check the little check mark to confirm that you have read it and agree, and then select continue. Okay. We do send system-generated and automated emails, and those usually come from info@classwallet.com. So we do highly recommend that you save this email address as a safe sender or whitelist it to make sure that you don't miss out on any important information. And then once you have already accessed your or set your password, then you can simply just log in by going again to app.classwallet.com and then entering your email address in all lowercase letters and the password that you just created. There might be some of you in the program that have multiple children participating and receiving ESTF funds. If you do fall under this scenario, then you'll have what we call toggle accounts. This means that one ClassWallet account was created for each approved student. Okay. And the way that you'll be able to toggle, so the way you'll be able to access or go from one student's account to the other student's account is by on your ClassWallet home screen. On the top right corner, you'll see where it says welcome and then your student's name. You'll click the little drop down arrow next to your student's name. Then you'll see a little menu come up. One of the options there should be switch to user. Once you click on that, you'll see your other students listed. So if you have two additional children participating in the program, then you'll see two additional names here. If you have three, you'll see three additional names there, and so on. Alrighty, so moving on to the ClassWallet homepage. So your homepage will look very similar to this snippet here with the addition of a couple of different tiles. Tiles are what we call these different little sections in your ClassWallet home screen. So starting off with the top left, you'll see your student's balance in the balance tile. And you will only see your student's balance after you accept the affidavit, which we'll go over in a second. You'll also see the shop tile. The shop tile is where you'll be able to purchase those educational items such as instructional materials and computer hardware through the ClassWallet Marketplace. You also have direct pay or the pay vendor tile. This is where you'll be able to see approved education service providers participating in the program. So this is where you'll be able to find those therapists or tutors and participating private schools or independent schools. You'll also have the Education Service Provider Network. This is where you'll be able to find all the approved education service providers, but this list just includes a little bit more detailed information than the pay vendor tile. This list includes contact information, it includes where they are located so that you can find a provider near you or find a provider that best suits your students' needs. You'll see the reports tile where you can view some personal reporting. You'll see the support tile where you can find just quick access to our YouTube channel or to our knowledge base articles or the different ways that you have to contact our customer support team. And then lastly, the account settings tile. This is where you'll be able to like reset your password and just view basic information in your ClassWallet account. Moving on to the affidavit, also known as the parent agreement and acknowledgement. Okay. So in your balance tile, if you have not done so already, if you haven't actioned the affidavit already, then you'll see that the balance on your student's account is $0. And then you should also see a little ribbon that says affidavit. Okay. Your balance will remain at $0 until you have accepted the affidavit. So in order to view that, you'll click on the little affidavit button on your balance tile. And then you'll be prompted a screen that shows you all the text and language within the affidavit. And it's basically just an acknowledgement, letting you know what the program guidelines are, and letting you know in order to participate in the program that you will be required to follow those program guidelines. So once you review that and you read over it, you'll have a couple of different options for you to take action on it. First option is to accept the affidavit. If you do decide to accept, then you will automatically see your account balance refresh and you'll see your students' quarterly deposit reflected in your balance tile. You can skip for now. So if you do decide to skip, maybe for some reason you're unable to review the affidavit at that time and you want to come back to it later, you can decide to skip. However, if you do skip for now, your student's balance will remain as $0, but you will have the opportunity to review it at a later time. And then lastly, you can reject the affidavit. So if you no longer wish to participate in the program, or you know that you are no longer eligible to participate in the program, then you can reject the affidavit. And then if you accidentally reject the affidavit, you can contact our customer support team and we'll be able to reset it on the back end. Okay. So moving on to education service providers and how you'll be able to locate them in your ClassWallet account. Okay. So as you may know, there are multiple education service providers that are eligible to participate in the program. This includes independent schools. This includes therapy providers, tutoring providers, curriculum vendors, and vendors that offer those instructional and technological and computer hardware items. Okay. There are multiple ways that you can find education service providers that are approved for the program. So one way being directly through the program website. So if you go to slide 21, or I also linked it on the chat here, and go to the program website, you'll be able to see all the approved providers participating in the program. You also have a list available to you directly in your ClassWallet page. So if you're already in your ClassWallet homepage, you can simply just go to that Education Service Provider Network tile and click on the little button there. That'll take you over to a sheet that has all the approved education service providers, along with their rates, where they're located, and any contact information provided. Okay. It is important to note that all ESPs must be approved to participate in the program. So they do have to apply and then go through an approval process. Okay, so if there are any providers that you see are not available to you, and you would like to use your ESTF funds to pay for their service, and you know that it is an eligible expense, you can encourage them to go ahead and apply to participate in the program. This application can be found on the program website, and we also have a dedicated guide or handbook for ESP so that they know what the program requirements are. Yep. And again, this is just going over how you'll be able to view those ESPs within your ClassWallet account. Yep. And it is your responsibility as a parent or as the account holder for the student's account to select the provider that best suits your student's needs and to measure the overall effectiveness of the provider for your students. So moving on to how you'll be able to use your funds in the ClassWallet platform. Okay. So in ClassWallet, you'll have two ways to use your ESTF funds. You'll have the ability to use them in the marketplace, and the marketplace is basically those vendors that have an e-commerce experience and that have integrated with ClassWallet to be part of the marketplace. And then you have the pay vendor option. This is the direct pay option where you'll be able to directly issue a payment to an approved education service provider. Okay. So starting off with pay vendor, or again, direct pay. This is where you'll be able to initiate a payment to those approved independent schools, tutors, therapists, or any other ESPs. Okay. Once, once you do start this process, part of the process is to upload an invoice. We'll go over what those invoice guidelines are, but just know as part of this process, you should already have that invoice in hand from your ESP. So to get started, you'll click on Pay Vendor on your Pay Vendor tile. And then you'll see a screen that looks very similar to this, and it's going to ask you, who do you want to pay? So again, this is you already initiating the payment process to the service provider. You'll want to search for your service provider's name on the little search bar. So this would be the organization or company name of the provider. Okay. Once you locate the vendor, you'll click on Pay, and then you'll be required to enter the payment amount. So how much are you trying to pay this vendor using ESTF funds? Step three is to upload the actual invoice. So that's why it is very important that you already have your invoice in hand um, at this at this point of the process. Okay. Then you'll be able to choose the purse that you want to make a payment from. You'll only have one purse available to you, so you should only have one option there. And then you can add any additional notes or comments that you would like to leave on the transaction. You'll then review the transaction, make sure everything you submitted is good, and then you can submit it. Okay. Every transaction, and this applies for both direct pay and for marketplace, does go through a review process. This review process is to ensure that all the payments and transactions being submitted actually abide by the program guidelines. Okay. That process, that review process typically takes 2 to 5 business days upon order submission, but the times may vary depending on order volume. Okay. So this is where we want to highlight what those invoice guidelines are. Okay. So um, for the invoices, first you will need to upload that in either PDF, JPEG, or PNG file format. Okay. So if you want to already ask your provider to give you the invoice in one of these formats, it'll make it a little bit easier for you at the time of submitting the payment. Okay. What needs to be included in the invoice should be the vendor's name, including their address, the name of the student and the parent, the date that the invoice was created, the date of the service or the date range of the service. So if this is maybe a tuition payment to an independent school, it could say, July tuition or Q1 tuition. And then if it's for a tutoring session, then it could have the different dates of the tutoring sessions. Then what is that payment for? So is this for tuition? Is this for therapy service? Is this for tutoring? That will need to be outlined within the invoice. And then lastly, the total amount due. Okay. So, some additional invoicing guidelines for you to keep in mind. If you are a family that is has multiple students participating in the program, and perhaps you have multiple students receiving services from the same provider, your provider can't give you the invoice with multiple students listed on it. It's just important to note that you will have to submit each payment on the respective student's account, and each student should be listed clearly and easily identifiable within the invoice. Okay. No handwritten documentation will be accepted, so a provider cannot, just write you an invoice. It will need to be digitized. Okay. Transportation fees must be invoiced separately. So if you are attending perhaps an independent school that's giving you transportation, that's or providing transportation services to your student, that transportation fee must be invoiced separately. And then you may submit payments for services that have not yet been rendered or that have already been rendered. This will be up to you to decide with the provider on whether they would like to receive payments before they issue or before they provide the service or after they provide the service. And then it is important to note that only services provided after July 1st, 2025 will be eligible to be approved. And then any payments submitted for services provided before July 1st will not be able to be approved. Alrighty, so moving on to the marketplace. So within the ClassWallet marketplace, this is where you'll be able to find those e-commerce stores such as Staples, Best Buy, Varsity Tutors that offer either digital courses or digital services or provide physical goods. Okay. So in order to go ahead and start shopping in the marketplace, you'll click where it says Start Shopping on your shop tile. Once you click on that, you'll see a page that shows you all of the approved marketplace vendors for this program. Okay. There you can select which vendor you want to shop from. Okay. Once you see the vendor that you want to shop from, you'll select them and you'll see that you are going to be routed over to their integrated page with ClassWallet. So it's going to look very similar as if you were shopping directly through that vendor's actual website, except you are shopping through their website, but the one that's integrated with ClassWallet, which is a very important distinction. You'll be able to build your cart and browse through the different items directly through their integrated website. And then when it's time to check out and to submit your order, you'll be routed back to your ClassWallet account. And this is intentional so that you can check out and submit the transaction using your ESTF funds in your digital wallet. Okay. Once you submit that, again, it will go through that review process to make sure that all the items that are being purchased or attempted to be purchased are actually eligible items that can be purchased using ESTF funds, which those would be all those approved expenses we went over at the beginning. And keep in mind, these payments or these transactions can take 2 to 5 business days to be reviewed based on just order volume at that time. And then shipping times do vary per vendor, but the average timeline that our vendors ship their items are 24 to 48 business hours after the date of the approval. Okay. So category selection requirement. So for every transaction that you submit, you are required to select a category. Okay. And what this category is just think of it as which category does my transaction that I am submitting mostly apply to. So if you're issuing a payment to an independent school for tuition, then you would select the tuition category. If you are purchasing items on the marketplace, such as paper, pencils, binders, then you would select the instructional materials category. Okay. And this is needed just for reporting purposes, and that's why the category is a requirement. Now, for transaction confirmation emails, you will receive a confirmation email every time that you submit an order. Okay, so if you submit an order, or if you are under the impression that you submitted an order but you don't receive a ClassWallet confirmation email, then I would recommend that you just check your orders report to make sure that that transaction actually went through. And then you will also receive another email letting you know of the decision that has been taken on your transaction. So whether it has been approved or whether it has been rejected. If any transaction is rejected, you will see the notes left, any rejection notes left, so that way you know what needs to be corrected on on the next order that you submit. Okay. So in your reports, this is where you'll be able to find any orders that you have submitted along with the status of that order. So whether it has been approved, whether it has been rejected, or whether it's still pending review. Yep. And then you also have your funds received report. Your funds received report will just give you a historical review of all the funds that have been deposited into your student's account. And then you can access your reports either through the reports tile or accessing the triple line menu on the top left corner of your screen. Some important things to remember. So again, all purchases are being reviewed. This review process can take anywhere from 2 to 5 business days after the order has been submitted. And then any improper use of your ESTF funds could result in your account being closed. Now, payments for service providers. So this is that direct pay vendor module for any payments to education service providers that are approved. The education service provider will receive that payment within 2 to 10 business days of the order being approved. Now, if any payment is rejected, you will receive that email communication letting you know it's been rejected, and all the funds will be credited back to your ClassWallet account so that you can reuse it for another purchase. Then any questions about why your order was rejected should be directed back to the email listed in the confirmation emails, which is help@classwallet.com. And then again, in addition to that email communication, you can find the rejection notes and comments in your personal transactions report. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, if you do want to save info@classwallet.com as a safe sender, that will guarantee that you don't miss out on any automated emails or any important information. Funding, the first quarterly deposit did start in July 2025 and will be distributed quarterly. You can find those dates within the parent guide. ESTF funds are not considered taxable income. And for those families that did sign the affidavit, you will be given the opportunity to renew, and the renewal process starts in November in 2025 for the 26-27 school year. So we'll be sending out additional communications once that renewal process is approaching. There is no reimbursement allowed to families, so all ESTF funds need to be either used through the ClassWallet Marketplace or through the direct pay option. And then any funds that have been unspent the end of the 25-26 school year will roll over to your student's account for the 26-27 school year. And this is dependent that your student remains eligible and that your student renews. And then any program information, including FAQs or the guides, can be found on the program website. And some general information about security. Here at ClassWallet, our number one priority is to keep our users' information safe. This includes you as a family and with the students' accounts, as well as all of the service providers' information. Mm. We do have a dedicated team whose sole job is to ensure that our security protocols are being complied with. And if you do have any additional questions or just want to see more about ClassWallet security measures and protocols, then we do have a dedicated knowledge base article on that. You can find it linked on slide 36 of this presentation. Okay. And lastly, you have our ClassWallet customer support team here to assist you with any questions you may have regarding your digital wallet. Things our support team can assist you with include how to access your account for the first time, any updates on orders or returns and exchanges, how to submit a payment to a service provider. Those are all just examples of things our team can assist you with. And you can contact us in three different ways. So you can start a live chat directly through your ClassWallet homepage. You can email us at help@classwallet.com, or you can call us at the number listed here. Our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay. Alrighty, and that concludes the presentation. So now we'll open it up for some questions, which I see some questions here. And Joshua, I see you've answered some. Thank you for that. Are there any you want to go ahead and address?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and jump in with a bunch of them, I think. So, thank you all for being here, and thank you for participating, and for a lot of very good questions. Let me start with the questions on expense categories. I've got a couple of questions on these. Um, I know that we've corrected expense categories when we see them. It's less, it's more important that the item that you're purchasing belongs to one of those categories than that it correctly identifies which one. Um, so sometimes we correct those, sometimes those go uncorrected. I know we're trying to correct them all. Is it easier to select one expense category? Yes, it is. Sometimes things fall into multiple categories. I will say, I think and I'm going to get to therapies here in a second. I think there's been some confusion as to what a therapy is or what it isn't. Therapies are things that are provided by therapists. So if you think about therapy items, that's not something that's going to be included in this program because what we're doing is connecting the therapists to the students so that the students can get the therapies that they need. Um, there's been a great question about let me get back up to it. The approved subjects for curriculum, workbooks, and supplies does not include music or art or STEM. And I'm happy to tell you that for year two of the program, that those are being changed, those are being added. We have in fact added those. You'll see those fairly shortly on the handbooks that we are updating and will be coming out soon. But yes, music and art are in. Music therapy as a therapy is not in yet. We can talk through what that may look like. We are working on equestrian therapy as a possible, and I know that's something that we've talked about as well. Still working on those items, but those are not yet in. Why are gaming computers not allowed when they're marketed that way, but are better quality to keep up with programs so they can run efficiently? You have a very good point there. The problem is gaming is a marketing term. It's also a political term. And just to be completely honest, I think we felt the need to make sure that legislators who watch these spending items are assured that these are being used for educational purposes and not gaming purposes. And that's why we made the internal decision not to allow gaming computers that are labeled that way, because I think it causes more problems than what it solves. I also have a great question here. Are you considering becoming an option for homeschooling? Let me explain what this looks like. Um, we're not option four per se, but what we provide is parent-led education at home and the opportunity for you to do that. Homeschooling, as you know, under South Carolina law, has three different options. One is the statewide association SCAES. One is that you work with your local district. One is that you use an association, which is what I do as an option three homeschool parent. But then now there is a fourth potential to educate at home because the law specifically says that if you are part of ESTF, then you are safe from truancy laws. If you're part of the ESTF and you're participating, then that qualifies you under compulsory attendance law. Um, that then opens up the ability for you to educate at home in the manner that you see fit, that you choose. We're very big on educational freedom here, and this is what we're trying to push. So that becomes another way to educate at home. And then you can use ESTF for curriculum, for books, for technology, for the computers, for tutoring, for individual online classes, for classes from a charter school, because I know I saw that come up earlier, for classes from a private school. We can handle all of those things. And then this becomes a way for you to educate at home that way. I will say that we're also working on some folks who are ready to come alongside to help with the transcript process. I know that's a big deal. We have worked it out with the DMV where we will send letters that say, yes, your child is involved with our program, and that'll take the place of the letters that have been coming from some of the associations, so that the DMV will then be able to allow your student to have their driver's license and driver's permit. So those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about as we're turning up this parent-led education at home option through ASTF. Does that make us option four? Technically, no, because we're not under the home school. We're educating at home. The one thing that we do for accountability based on what's in the law is that you have to take some sort of a standardized test, whether it's SC Ready or MAP or Iowa or Stanford. We have a testing um, provider on the site now, CTIN testing. So effective now, we have the ability to do that, and there's going to be more that goes out to the first year parents on making sure that we get that dealt with and taken care of for those students. But those are all things that we've been working on the educating at home side. Um, Let me look for a couple of other questions here. Um, Detailed list of guidelines for vendors. It looks a lot like the vendor participant guide looks a lot like the student participant guide. It's the same categories. Anything that's in those categories, absolutely, we're looking for more vendors. So if you contact me with that, we can certainly have them contact me and we can reach out. Music lessons, have your music teacher contact me about becoming a music tutor. Music teachers are effectively music tutors. Same with art, and have them contact us. They'll have to go through the background checks, but we are set to approve those. Um, Same goes for vendors of art classes, STEM classes, music classes. Those are the things that we are working on. Vendors on the marketplace that sell general school supplies, check out Office Depot or Staples. You purchased kids' instructional materials on the 22nd, haven't heard back. We're all working on that. We got 7,250 invoices in the first 6 days, and we're working through those as quickly as we can. How can you contact me? My email, the best one to get me for the program, ESTF program at ed.sc.gov. And Manuel has just put it in the chat. The assessment tests that I mentioned, MAP is a formative test. That's something you do 3 times a year. Iowa, Stanford, and SC Ready are called summative tests. That's one you would do once at the end of the year. College prep tests, ACT, SAT, PSAT, all of those would be allowable, and all of those are you don't need to do all of those. You just need to do one. Um, but those are all allowable tests that we have in the program. Um, Brain balance program, I believe we have. I know we've talked about them. Let me get back to you. If you can email me, I can get back to you on that. I know we're working on that with brain balance. Does tax-free weekend? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I would assume it does, but I don't know. Vendor promotions do. I'm looking back to see any other questions here that we can quickly do. Did that one. Can funds be used for homeschooling? I think I've answered that mostly in terms of the again the parent-led education at home. The answer to parent-led education at home is yes. You specifically cannot be part of SCAES or use an option two option or use the option three association option. But if you're willing to educate at home without doing those three things, then yes, the funds can be used for that. Um,
I see a question about uniforms. So we are I believe there is one uniform vendor now that is available within direct pay. You should be able to locate who that vendor is within the public facing ESP list. If you do purchase for uniforms out of pocket, unfortunately, you will not be able to be reimbursed at this time. But if you want to purchase uniforms from your school as well, that is allowed as long as the school is approved.
do pretend play toys qualify under instructional educational material? I would have to look at that item by item. It's got to have at least some sort of an academic tie. But we are pretty flexible with a lot of the things that we've done. So we can certainly take a look at that. Are items being added to ClassWallet's allowable list, so less has to be escalated? I'll say this: we are keeping a relatively tight rein on the book side of things. Because of some things that we've been active at as a department. If you've seen some headlines about what the department's been involved in with school libraries and some inappropriate materials for children. So anytime there are books, we're looking at them a little more closely. Does that include coloring books? Unfortunately, if it's a book, it's a book, it's a book. So yes, we are looking at that. I'm trying to go through those as quickly as I can. I know that the parent who wrote this has had a lot of books go through, and I appreciate how well you have done curating your own list for your own kids. I've never had a single problem. Just letting you know that yes, we still escalate those to me. Let me look at what else we've got here. Are musical instruments included? Instrument rentals can be. Buying a musical instrument is not. I can't put a $20,000 cello on this thing. But we are, we're certainly open to music rentals. Will extracurriculum be covered outside of school? The answer to that is yes, but it depends on the item. Again, it has to have an academic tie if you're talking about uh, extracurricular activities. Are more special education options going to be added? Contact me on that. Let's see what you mean by that. I'm not certain, but we're certainly open to a lot of different things on that. If you have a child that's exempt from testing, if you have an IEP or a 504 or an ISP or a note from your doctor, send it to me. Again, that same email, and we can deal with that. We have a number of kids that were exempt from testing this year for exactly that reason. Online curricula absolutely is allowed. We have a number of online providers. Happy to have online providers, either for individual classes or for full-time enrollment. But those are absolutely allowed. Um, yeah, our test score is going to be uh, out until not out until mid-August. Is that going to be impacting us? No, we knew that. What we wanted to know, and there were some forms that we sent around to make sure that they got filled out. We wanted to make sure that you knew to fill out the form to tell us where those scores are going to be coming from so that we know how that's going to go. Is that going to affect him? No, it's not going to affect him. As soon as I get those scores, everything is going to be good. We have yet to announce that we're pushing back our testing deadline, but we will be pushing back the testing deadline because of how things went with bringing on the new vendor and how just how the details played out. But that'll be coming. Um, Sewing machines are not allowable. We can talk about that. I don't think that we've made the decision to allow that. Um, a price cap for instruments is something we are discussing internally. I'm not sure how exactly we would play that, but that's something we would take a look at. In terms of extracurriculars, chess club, basketball, soccer, if you're talking about through a school, the answer is yes. If you're talking about doing something from a home education perspective, that gets a little tougher. But if you're getting it from a provider who's an approved provider, we can talk about it.
Thank you, Joshua, for going through those. Just going through the questions here, seeing if there's anything else frequently asked that we should address.
Is there anything we need to show proof we are home educating? The long and short answer to that is no. The accountability that we have in the program is directly related to the testing that we do at the end. That testing is for you to understand how well it's going for you from the perspective of a standardized test, which I know some parents care about and some parents don't. The legislature cares about them, which is why they put them in the program. But the legislature doesn't see individual scores. They'll just see how 10,000 students performed, and that's it. So the proof is, I would keep proof if I were you. I would keep your records and know, so for your own sake, here's how I can document uh, how our program's going. But that's really more for you than it is for anybody else. And then that'll also help you with the folks who handle the transcripts later on when it's time to think about diplomas.
And as a follow-up to that, Joshua, they're asking, do they need to file a notice of intent?
We don't have that in South Carolina. If your school is demanding one or your district is demanding one, just tell them you're in ESTF. If that isn't good enough for them, uh, give me their phone number and I will be happy to make a phone call. In fact, I was doing that just earlier this morning. Great question here. Two of my children are on the wait list for next year. How many scholarships will you allow next year? That is going to be up to the legislature. The cap for this year was 10,000. We pulled 239 off the wait list this morning, based on parents that were that who's had pulled their children out because they were attending zone public schools. Um, I don't know how many more of those there will be, either from um, what I would say are voluntary withdrawals or involuntary withdrawals after we do enrollment verification for the year. Next year, The law says the cap will be at least 15,000, but the legislature has the ability to increase that. That's part of the budget process. We would anticipate that probably goes up somewhat, but it's going to be up to the legislature and it's going to be how they come back. So we're not really sure how that's going to go yet. If my daughter is going to a private school that isn't linked with the process, how does the assessment testing go? Ask your school if they do. Now, specifically for a first grader. So there's your first thing. First and second graders and kindergartners are exempt from the testing requirement. The testing requirement only goes third through 12th grades. Now, if you have a third grader who is going to a private school that isn't linked with the process, what you can do is ask them which test they're going to administer. And then will they give you those test scores? And if it's one of the tests that we approve, then you can send those to us. The school will have done it, no harm done. If it's not, or they're not willing to share, then you can get the test through ESTF through Seton testing. What was the answer on vendors for uniforms? We're working on vendors for uniforms. A number of them. A number of the uniforms just simply come through the school. And so the school then will bill you for the uniform. You'll deal directly with the school. And then you can send us the invoice through ClassWallet, and that'll be how that goes. Is testing a requirement? I think I've talked a lot about assessments, but the requirement is yes, that you go through one standardized test, whether it's MAP, Iowa, Stanford, SC Ready, and then send that to us at the end of the year. And that answers two questions. Do we email ESTF end of year assessment or submit it online? Yes, you submit it to me. Email it to us. Send your email again. It should be in the chat. Again, ESTF program at ed.sc.gov. Are we guaranteed to get this fund for next year if you are approved for this year? You are not guaranteed. However, you do have priority. The Act 11 that went through this year shifted us from doing just an attestation to you have to apply again every year to verify that your income is below the limit. And now that limit's going to go up from 300% to 500% this year. So there's going to be more options for that. But you have to also validate and verify that you're still a South Carolina resident. I think that's one of the other big things. If you are a current scholarship student, then November 1st of this year, we're going to be opening up the priority window only for current students. So you have first priority going in, and that priority window will be open for about 2.5 months. So it's quite an opening. I strongly encourage everybody to get your paperwork in that first week because it's going to be there's going to be a lot of folks trying to make sure that they get in. And so the first priority will be for students. I'm now going to skip to the next question. The second priority that opens on January 15th will be for other priorities that the legislature laid out. Number one on that list is siblings. So if you have multiple kids and one of them's 4 and going to turn 5 next year, then yes, they're going to get a priority window starting January 15th. Other priorities include, were you a public school student last year, and are you military? If you are full-time active duty military, then you've got a priority as well. Have those that were selected off the wait list received an email yet? I don't believe that email has gone out for today. I expect it to later today. And then it won't be one email. It'll end up being 3 or 4 by the time you're done because you're going to hear from a number of different folks, and we're going to be happy to welcome you to the program. What subjects are included on the assessments? For 3rd, 5th, and 7th and 8th grades, it's math and English language. For 4th and 6th, they include science. So it's math and English for everybody, English language arts. And then it'll be science gets added in fourth and sixth because that's how SC Ready is done. And then once you get to high school, you're looking at end of course testing and you're looking at the SAT, the PSAT, which usually is just a math and verbal, and the ACT. We can take any of those. Um, what's the amount of time we're looking at for delayed approvals? We're doing our best. We're going as fast as we can. We have teams working on that. Which grades are exempt from testing? Kindergarten, first, and second. State park passes. The answer to that is no for now, but we're still looking at that as a possibility. Also looking at the possibility of museums who might want to come on board. Um, the zoo, the botanical gardens here in Columbia. I think all of those are things that we could potentially look at, but so far haven't gone. Legos for STEM. I know we've done at least some of that, but it's been limited. But we can take a look at that. I can answer that offline. Can the funds be used for homeschooling, online curriculum instead of going to a private school? Absolutely.
Alrighty, Joshua, I do want to be conscious of our time. Do you want to answer these last two questions really quick before we log off?
I think we already have on the one, and I'll take this one privately.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Joshua, for going through the questions. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions. If you think of anything or if we were unable to address your question, please feel free to reach out to our customer support desk or to Joshua at the department. We'll be happy to assist. Again, this webinar was recorded and it will be posted on the program website, and we'll send out an email communication once that has been posted. Thank you all. We look forward to continuing working with you and your families, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day and week.